All right, so Crypto Love Line, and this is the first episode since coming back. I tried to launch this about a year ago and kind of started it because when I went to conferences and stuff, it felt like the guys were always asking me for advice about their dating, like their dating lives. And so I kind of started Crypto Love Line as that, and then realized while I was doing it that it really needed to be more about just we could talk about people's love lives, but we could also just talk about what's going on with the tribalism and division within cryptocurrency, within the world, really, like everything that we've all experienced. And then the article that I wrote in the last week, and like the kind of animosity and I don't know the emotions that kind of sent flying indicated to me that it's time to restart Crypto Love Line with the full intent of just talking about everyone's collective trauma, right? Like and what we can do about it, like to repair personal relationships if not professional ones. And so I'm really grateful that Ellie has agreed to be my guest today. Thank you so much, Ellie.
Yeah, thank you, Nicole. I mean, I love the name of the show. I think Crypto Love Line is something that is definitely missing in cryptocurrency, where we're always talking about work, 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 and then we kind of forget the people behind everything. And I think that's something that I've always made sure in my personal and in my business relationships to nurture, maybe as well. Maybe that's just the feminine aspect of doing business, but I've always been very, I guess, myself, and I've always been trying to put people together. And maybe that's also linked to my experience as a meetup organizer, to just connect people. So obviously emotions and people's feelings are very important. And for being in the big blockers community, I've obviously been exposed to tribalism or maxis being really upset at my position. So I've really seen a lot of different things, but definitely emotions are always flying high in this industry. So
yeah, definitely. And so, it's kind of why I launched the SLP token Hugs, which is the shirt that I'm wearing. Yeah. So I started Hugs because I just wanted people to have something that they could pass around that didn't have, monetary value. So it wasn't like, tainted by people thinking that they didn't want to send them. And also that was, really cheap to create and really cheap to send. And you can send Hugs for fractions of a penny. Just like any SLP.
Yeah, I think it's great that you sort of went, so first of all, that you just ran with it, that you just created your token. I haven't researched it, but have you, so I guess it's not listed, is it, and how are you distributing it basically? Or is this just like really purely like an experiment for fun, or like, because maybe one day you could list it and that could be like a whole like other adventures for Hugs.
So I really want Hugs to have no monetary value, which doesn't mean that it has no value, right? Like its value is determined by the community who passes them around. Yeah. And I don't want it to be tethered to, the dollar or any other asset that has value, like monetary value.
It could be traded. If people start trading it, it could gain value just because people think it's cute and nice, and they're like, oh, I want to hold a lot of Hugs or something. I don't want to throw off the plan.
So here's what I think. Here's what I think my like long-term vision for Hugs could potentially be. Not necessarily that Hugs has its own trading value, but that coins could be, or tokens could be airdropped to people dependent, based on their Hugs holdings. So that's kind of,
How did you learn about SLP? How did you get into creating your own token? Or not a lot of people know about SLP, first of all, so maybe you can tell your story about how you created your token and that story.
So I learned about it because of my research on crypto tribalism. I had Roger Ver on a podcast that I was co-hosting, and we talked for a couple of hours, and then he was sponsoring giveaways for the show that I was doing after that. And then one day I asked for some Bitcoin Cash to give away, and he said, "Let me show you how how Tether SLP works." And that kind of made me like learn a little bit more about what SLP was. And then I think a couple of weeks later, I was like, I want to create my own token. Where can I do it? Like how much energy and effort and money is going to have to go into it? And I started looking at what the options were, like, you know, Tron, Ethereum. And then I was like, oh, I can make a token on Bitcoin Cash for under a penny. And yeah.
Wow. So how was your whole experience? Like, where did you end up minting it? Like, how easy was the process? Like, I think a lot of people might, I don't know.
Sure. Yeah, I made a video about it. I made a video all about like what I thought all the use cases for SLP could be. And then I also showed how to create your own SLP and then how to put it into CC Tipbot so that it could be auto distributed.
Awesome.
So where did I do it? I did it at mint.cash. Or what, is that right?
Mint or mint.bitcoin.com maybe? I'm not sure which one.
Bitcoin, yeah. Okay. So yeah, so and it was really easy. It took like, you know, less than 5 minutes. I've done it other ways. I've also done it using the Electron Cash wallets. And
that wallet. I think it's always like, I feel every time I'm using Electron Cash wallet, I always feel like this ultimate cypherpunk girl, because it's like such a nerdy platform. Obviously it's packed with features, but it's like such a scary interface. Like I remember downloading like the Android version and like deleting it because I was like, there's like a command line and like the third tab is like a command line. I was like, I'm not qualified to hold this wallet on my phone. I'm gonna like, I don't know what I'm going to do. It's not gonna go well. But it's interesting. It's one of the oldest wallets out there, and obviously they have a lot of people are using it. But for me, sometimes I'm a bit like, oh my God, I need someone to hold my hand when I'm using that wallet sometimes.
Yeah, the first way that like I used Electron Cash Wallet before I used the mint.bitcoin to do it. And yeah, it's much more, it's not like harder, but you have to understand a little bit more, but you can do a lot more with it too. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I've done it a couple different ways. It's not hard, but it's easier to use them. Yeah. Yeah.
For people that
you can make an NFT from the Electron Cash wallet, which is really cool.
For people that don't understand, by the way, what SLP is, it's like Simple Ledger Protocol, and it's basically to be able to have tokens that are minted on Bitcoin Cash, and it's just like Bitcoin Cash with a bit of metadata wrapped around it. So it's like it's tokens that are, but they're non-native tokens on. So it's like for those who maybe remember the days where a coin, what was it called? Counterparty on BTC and those types of like colored coins basically on BTC. But since those, I believe they're called opcodes, been removed from the code, so you can't really do that type of tokens now on BTC. And I guess it would be super expensive as well to like send these like fractions, little things. Basically, they would actually accuse you like spamming the blockchain probably for like sending these types of things. But I think as like an experiment and for people to like discover tokens and like the myriad of things you can do with it, basically, personally for me, SLP is like really a fun place for people to just experiment, but also for companies and for like people to launch like kind of, it's like a reward or points token. That would be like really the use case, I think, for SLP. And personally this year we used them in the BCH DEFCON 3 hackathon, where we minted BCH DEFCON 3 tokens and then we sold them for sponsorships. So it's like we you know, it was just like, okay, you give us a certain amount of BCH and we'll give you a certain amount of SLPs. And actually those SLP tokens were used in the voting process. So basically the sponsors then were voting for the teams. So then each team that was competing in the hackathon had an SLP address, and then everybody had to vote at a certain point and send tokens to those addresses. And then that's how we had this very transparent voting system. And then we burnt all the tokens. So I went through the whole loop of like minting, sort of doing something with it, and then using them and then burning it all. And I thought that was, yeah, that just happened all through the Electron Cash wallet, actually. So yeah, that was really fun. But those are the type of things you can do with SLP.
Yeah. So one thing that I've been saying kind of from the beginning when I've kind of jumped into Bitcoin Cash is that I think that this community has experienced more tribalism than I've seen concentrated elsewhere in cryptocurrency. And that's why I was interested, why I started getting involved. And, you know, one thing is that the community, the whole focus on on the construction and maintenance of the community is definitely stronger within Bitcoin Cash than it is in many other places. So I wonder,
because obviously you're the tribalist expert here, because you're like analyzing communities and you have like that background. Like, I don't want to be that person, but like, would you describe tribalism? Like, what does it define, or what do you see that's like, I don't know, what's like a Tron tribe or an Ethereum tribe or a Dash tribe? Like, what makes Bitcoin Cash for you like a tribe? Or maybe I should answer that. I'm not sure, but
so what made me think Bitcoin Cash is a tribe?
No, but like, what is tribalism basically? Because I use the word, I guess, community, which is like a different way of like calling like a certain group of people that believe in certain things. Tribalism for me has automatically like either a negative interpretation. Like it's more aggressive. I feel like if you're being tribal, you're not being rational, or you're being maybe more aggressive. But maybe I'm wrong in what you define as tribal.
No, so what I was saying when I said Bitcoin Cash has experienced a great deal of tribalism is, yeah, I think that is exactly what I mean, is aggression, anti Bitcoin Cash sentiments. People seem to really have like a strong dislike, if they're not part of that community, a really strong dislike for the Bitcoin Cash community.
Yeah, I've experienced it like either in person or online, that tribalism. That was insane. Okay, I'll start with maybe the beginning of how I see Bitcoin Cash, but I started working at BTC.com as a content and community manager for a wallet. And we were one of the first wallets after the 2017 fork to integrate Bitcoin Cash. Mm-hmm. So it was quite something to then be working for that team, and then to be out there onboarding new users and using Bitcoin Cash as a tool to onboard new users. So I had like these little cards, and they had like a little scratch QR code in the back, and those were loaded with a little bit of Bitcoin Cash. So I got really familiar with Bitcoin Cash's narrative, its value proposition, the difference with BTC, through onboarding users and through the educational material that then I was actually creating and being part of with the marketing team basically at BTC.com. And damn, I right away I felt it, because I stumbled onto cryptocurrencies in 2017. So it had already hard forked basically. So I didn't follow the whole block size debate. I sort of fell into it. First discovered blockchain, which is a bit cringe now, and then realized, oh wait, payments. And then was using blockchain. And I remember being at conferences or meetups, and then people being so negative and Roger Ver's paying you, and no, and like, you've done so much. They were so in Amsterdam, where I'm based and where I've done most of my cryptoing and my meetuping and all of that, a lot of Bitcoin maximalists, or people that were really upset with Bitcoin Cash. But not a lot of people took upon, not a lot of people were on board with the Bitcoin Cash narrative at all, and really saw Bitcoin Cash as a disruptive factor. But some people here were passionate as well at the same time about peer-to-peer electronic cash, and people that had gone through the block size debate, I would say, that had experienced 4 years of sort of stagnation in protocol, and like people refusing to change it, and basically core becoming more and more difficult to work with, or therefore not to be able to work with. And that frustration finally in 2017 mounting to, fine, SegWit 2x is not enough. That's it. We have to go and have another blockchain where we can have bigger blocks. We will not be able to have bigger blocks here. Maybe in the future, imagine if like in 5 or 10 or 100 years from now, BTC has bigger blocks. But for sure, 3 years ago, that was like a mute argument. Yeah. And so the tribalism, I think, comes from the fact that BCH was born from dissent. It's born from frustration. It's not born from anything else. Then we have to scale. We have to onboard the next billions of users. We have to be better than Visa and MasterCard. We have to be able to be cheap and fast and reliable, and BTC is not that, and BTC team is not letting us evolve, so let's just go somewhere else. And then of course the tribalism is, well, another factor I think is the name, right? It could have been called something completely different. I don't know.
Well, oh yeah, definitely. I think that combined with the marketing tactic of BCH is the real Bitcoin really just pissed off Core. And of course, Core has more money than anybody else. So, so that's really, I think, where that's born from. Absolutely. I disagree. I don't disagree at all. And just having I was around during the block size debate. I wasn't like working in the industry, but I was invested in the, in the space. And I kind of remember all of it because when I saw Bitcoin Cash splitting from Bitcoin originally, that's where when I first came into crypto with Ethereum, I already knew that there was tribalism, and my postgraduate studies were in religious studies, and I did field research in rural Iran on implementations or on rogue implementations of Sharia law for crimes of apostasy, and watched how those communities split because of.
Did you travel to Iran? Because that's one of my I would love at some point to go to Tehran. I myself was more like on the Lebanese side of things. That's where I did my exchange programs and stuff. But I've always thought that I really wanted to go and see a big Shia mosque, basically, in Tehran. But
yeah, no, and it's not easy to get into Tehran. I had to have so many special permissions and universities asking, and government involvement, and that's an interesting place to live, and sort of, I think, having lived there and in the UAE and doing that research in the Middle East forever changed the way that I look at everything.
Absolutely. I mean, I obviously, and it's so, I mean, can I just say it's really cool. I really first of all, what you've studied, religious studies, and then to be able to go on the ground and have such a different perspective, I guess. Were you it was all in the field of your studies, right? And so you're able to study abroad in Tehran and do your research thesis or something like that?
Yeah, that's what I was doing. Mm-hmm.
Very cool. Very cool. And so then you transpose that knowledge basically to cryptocurrency.
Yep.
Very nice.
Yep. And then, I kind of realized I was in the PhD program, and I kind of realized there's absolutely no point of me writing this academic, so that 10 people or 100 people can read it. And then, I quit my PhD program. Because I wanted to do something real, and then I had a baby and completely and completely quit doing that. And then when I found cryptocurrency in 2016, I was like, that's the best case study I've ever seen. But I didn't really get into it, didn't really start examining it in depth until the BTC hard fork in 2017. And and then so I kind of, that's where I wasn't working in the industry even at that time though. So I was just kind of looking at it without having any kind of backing or, any formal structure at all. And then I started looking at it more officially when BSV forked from BCH.
That was insane. It's interesting because did you say that you came in from the Ethereum community first, and then, because I think for people that are new, or for people like me in 2017, which we didn't really realize, is that Ethereum was the most hated coin for a long time, because they were the ones that, how dare you create something completely outside of Bitcoin? And now it's, I'm so happy that Vitalik made that decision, because that for a lot of people who may not know, that Vitalik at first wanted to build something like Ethereum on top of Bitcoin, and then realized how contentious that would be to work or make it work, and it was okay, I'm going to just do my own thing. This was 2014, and we can see where Ethereum is at today. Whereas BCH is people that were not Ethereum supporters, that did not think that Ethereum would be the answer, and that were Bitcoiners. And it's all these different streams of people, basically, all these different communities and values that and people also get entrenched in certain things, right? So I think from my perspective, I've always made sure, or at least I'm trying really hard to not fall into that tribalism, basically, to not have that echo chamber in my life, to be able to say that I used to another saying I had was say, buying a coin is a political statement, because
that's in your Twitter bio.
Yeah. So whatever you buy basically represents what you like, right? What will be something that matters for you. So, or something that resonates with you. And there's so much choice out there, right? Maybe people only vibe with hugs. Maybe people just only care about hugs and they'll want to just have that. But
Yeah.
other people will want, full, very diversified portfolios. Others will just like to have 3 or 5 coins. And that's why I'm trying to fight this tribalism, even within myself and within my work. And that's why I believe that, Dash is money, Ethereum is money, Bitcoin Cash is money. Bitcoin is very expensive money.
Bitcoin is money for the elite.
It's just, I want this, like hugs, basically. I want it to be fast, cheap to send. It has to be that way. Otherwise, we're not competing. Otherwise, we're not offering anything different than just really weird, very expensive kind of poshy way of sending value over the internet. But we're actually trying to do something here where people have access and control over their assets and can actually transact freely and cheaply. And that's why I believe that there's different alternatives to considering what cryptocurrencies can be money, but then some of them just lose because their value proposition or their usability has gone down. Even though a lot of people think, Ethereum is money right now, it is difficult to transact. Some blocks are, some.
Oh yeah, it is. I don't like it's expensive to move around ETH especially depending on when you're doing it. Like, I don't like to use
ETH. Time it. You're like, okay, maybe Sunday night. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, no.
They're trying to, in their narrative and in their, diversified, also they have different implementations. They want to scale, right? They're facing now, they're congested because they're too popular, which is fantastic for them. Which is right there, available and free and not being used, right? So it's like these sort of these trade-offs. And I guess a lot of people right now, also, they might not have the experience. If you're just a trader, it doesn't really, you're just getting in and out. You might not be withdrawing your assets. It might just be sitting there in the exchange. It doesn't matter for you, but maybe that's why the market isn't really rational right now, because it takes time for people to be able to experience these different things. We, as like, I don't know, I hate using the word expert, like as people that are using it maybe more frequently, or aware of these differences that make us prefer a coin over another because it's just faster or cheaper or that we have access to. Yeah. No, but this tribalism is.
So that's something that I really wanted to talk to you. I know that you came in, so you didn't really experience the full emotional extent of the original fork, but you have experienced it since then. So you've been through one contentious hard fork with BSV. I think you mentioned that you've lost friends, you lost people who you work with.
Yeah, we have. We had a brilliant, Alex Favell was working at Cyber Capital, which is a cryptocurrency investment fund, which I'm part of and I help and work with. And yeah, he was he went full BSV maximalist, and it was a heartbreak. Really, it's like, I couldn't believe it, because this guy was like so, and a lot of BSV people, I think in general, are extremely smart. Like they know their stuff. They're like long-term Bitcoiners as well, usually, and
very dedicated to that like narrative as well, and to proving it, and to absolutely.
They're diehards. Like really, when the BSV fork happened, we lost true momentum in the Bitcoin Cash community. It really felt like, oh my God, we got amputated. We lost a leg or something. I mean, we continued, right? BCH continued, but truly a lot of people, and I'm really insisting on the people aspect, because people will talk about hash power, they'll talk about other things, they'll talk about companies, but from a people perspective, I was really hurt. And I know this is going to sound a bit whiny, but I was at the BCH DevCon 2 that I was organizing, and I was so happy. We had all these different people there, including Ryan X. Charles, right? He was one of the mentors, and he was there for the hackathon. And I remember talking with him and being like, so, what do you think? And it was 2 weeks before the fork. And he was like, oh, don't worry, Ellie, no split. And I was like, okay, cool, very nice. And I remember just the moment he announced that yours.org would go to BSV, I was speechless. And then I think I just put like a crying emoji. It's a bit pathetic, but I just put like a little crying emoji on Twitter. Like, I had no words. I was just like, what? And blocked me. That was the first type of like Twitter kind of like weirdness that I experienced, where I was like, did I just what? And I just get blocked for this.
Well, that's where I think that it's like, so tribalism is necessary in some ways, right? Like it enables strong communities, it like builds strong groups, and it's something that's like pretty fundamentally important to human evolution. Have been like the construction of tribes. That's what like allows people to move forward. But there are also toxic elements that really should be bred out, and one of them is the idea that people who are members of a certain tribe can't be friendly with members of another tribe. And so you've lost friends, and your BCH is about to go through another hard fork.
I already cried. I already went this year. This year has been so emotional. I mean, considering COVID and then the mayhem and this tribe, basically. We had another hackathon, the latest one, and Tobias Ruck was here. Tobias Ruck was in Amsterdam and flew, and so nice, and we had other developers here, and I had such a long conversation with him. I was like, Tobias, it's not gonna fly. It's not gonna fly. It's not gonna fly. Please, just like you're important. You're developing Mitra. You're developing Bcash. You're doing amazing things. You're the golden boy here. You're a talented developer. Don't get used. That's what I was telling him. I thought, or at least my perspective is that, he didn't have the right ideas considering the fork, and that he was like, no, I can't work with BCHN and stuff like that. And I was like, why? What do you mean? Well, the roadmap, there's no roadmap. I'm like, dude, they're doing this. It's the same code here, and it's just one with no tax. Yes, but tax will be great. And I thought, well, that's where I disagree. And that's where I thought, politically, self-funding mechanisms are really interesting, but whatever, I'll wrap it up. But basically, I hugged Tobias, and it was really sad. I was really sad because I did convince him, basically.
Do you have to end a friendship with someone because they're going the other way in a hard fork? Shouldn't that, like, why should that be? Especially when it's something like this, where it's like, the hard fork is occurring because two groups adamantly disagree about the direction of where things are going. So some are going to go in their direction and others are going to go in theirs. There shouldn't be personal issue.
Yeah, I like your point of view, and I think it's a very it's a Zen way of seeing things. Maybe I am too close to the picture. Maybe I am too close to these people. And I guess because of the work I do, and because of basically being surrounded by these people, I realized the loss. I'm actually, when someone goes a different way or believes another way, which is totally their right? Forking is freedom. You don't agree.
Forks are good. They're healthy.
Forks are healthy.
I'm going to quote Roger really quick and say, the more forks, the better.
Yes, but I also feel like every time we fork, like when I said we got amputated with BSV, it was really because I felt like a loss of momentum. Like you can see, in terms of engagement and just, people creating content or just people having interesting conversations, every fork you lose. Of course, long term, hopefully you go back and you get more people in. And if you don't, then it's a sign that your tribe, I'm going to use your lingo now, that your tribe is not attractive, right? If you lose people just slowly and it just it will die over then, or maybe we'll have a rebirth, but not right away. And for Tobias, it's not a goodbye. Really, it's not. For me, it's and for other people on the ABC side, I hope it's not a goodbye. It's just that it's been so toxic. I got messages telling me off. I
got messages telling me off too.
Crazy. I was just like, whoa, I'm not used to this. I don't want this. I don't want to be spoken to this way. But I got messages like this, and how I shouldn't trust XYZ and XYZ, and how it was terrible what I was doing, and that in the long time I'll realize them. And I was like, dude, I just don't like your I don't like that you were whitelisting an address. That's fine, just do your thing. But I don't have to like it. But maybe because I'm part of Satoshi's Angels, because we are, working on boarding merchants and building communities and meetups and events, it matters what the Satoshi's Angels teams believes and what we do. So I guess that's why. If we were if no one cared, if I didn't speak if I never spoke out, if I was just like an anonymous user, this would not happen. But because I know people in ABC, because I worked with ABC, I did that wonderful video, What is Bitcoin Cash, last year. And I am proud of that video. It is a good video. I stand by every word that's in it. It's the same narrative I have today. And it allowed me to meet a lot of interesting people, actually. But I just wish them all the best, basically. And then it's like, yeah, forking is freedom, and may the future be decentralized. I'm not sure what what it will look like, but I hope that the future will be beautiful, and that people will be using cryptocurrencies as payments. Basically, that's the dream. And I don't know what form it will take, what shape it will take, but I am just one teeny tiny ant in a very big ecosystem. And yeah, just, I don't know. Like you said, forking is freedom. I totally agree with that. I remember when Paul Pui said here, the CEO of the Edge wallet, which is a great wallet that I use.
Oh, yeah.
He was like, he had a slide, I remember, and it was saying forking is freedom. And I was like, yes. And yeah, I don't know, 15th of November, it just seems like, but I feel like, okay, another point I will say about forking is that forking are good when, well, I guess this is a huge, there's like not an agreement on the future of how things should be managed and stuff like that. But I wish forks were carried more significance, a little bit more. Because I feel like it took a while to fork off BTC, right? It took like 4 years or so before people were like, okay. But now it's a little bit more flimsy. It feels like it's like, oh yeah, whatever, we disagree on this thing. It could have been the orange-green color or something. That would have been ridiculous, but that was also a contentious point, the marketing, like what we should be called or something like that. So yeah, I hope in the future that there will be less forks like this, that are just, that we can reach consensus earlier on things, that we can agree to disagree, and if we disagree, to have like a constructive debate about it, and also to not push forward things just because we really want them. I remember having a really interesting, actually my last conversation with Amaury, because I was doing the Corn Spice podcast with Kelso at the time, and I had just talking about the IFP, and I called Amaury like, okay, just dude, like, just take it out. Just let's not do it this year. Don't do the IFP. We need more time to talk about it, basically. Like, you cannot just sprung up this whole new idea in a community and for people to just accept it in 6 months. You know, it's like, and then the whole PRness of it was super sloppy, how miners announced it, and then it was like, oh, that's why we have to do it. Miners are requesting it. But the moment the miners backed out, ABC didn't. You know, they were very forceful. And that's what I think was kind of mismanaged. Like, I wish he had been, but that's just wishful thinking. But I wish he would have been like, yeah, Ellie, you're right. You're right. Let me go back to the code and remove it. My bad. I thought if I, you know, and now it's a heartbreak to see, like, and at the same time, I'm also happy to see a successful fork, basically, where people that fought for certain things were able to just make a change, and so that the infrastructure as well listened. So wallets are listening, exchanges are listening, they are following BCHN. People are running BCHN nodes right now. So yay, but also there's not much to rejoice. It's like it took so much energy, it took so much focus from so many people over this last year. So
yeah, so I think that was kind of the biggest point in the, you know, in the piece that I wrote, was like, just because hard forks in the past have gone this way and have drained people's energy and have been super contentious and have, you know, ended friendships and ended working relationships, that doesn't mean that this one has to. You know, like, the memory of how things used to be or how things were last time often has a strong effect on how things are next time, because you are traumatized, because there's trauma, and not individually, but collectively, you know? And the only real way to move forward from that is to recognize it in the moment and behave differently.
Yeah. No, it's, I hope I'm not part of the problem. I am probably probably I am on some level. I'm not always conscious of it. I'm wondering if I am acting differently. Yeah, I'm not purposely cutting bridges. It's really
Let me
interesting.
ask you this. If I give you some hugs to give away, how would you feel about giving some hugs to people who are regardless of where they are on this, on whatever side?
Yeah, I'll take them. I'll distribute.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll distribute. Like, I don't, you see, it's like, it's not, I'll distribute.
Okay.
But yeah, for me, that's not where it stopped for me. And I really think, I'm curious. Like, I'm curious if, how is it going to work? I like self-funding mechanisms. Like, I've always said this, self-funding is awesome. Hey, maybe ABC, I just don't like the council. I don't like that whole thing that they created around it. There's so many examples right now of proper decentralized self-funding models. And Emily knows that. He knows better. So it's like, whatever. There's 2-3 things he could have tweaked. That would just instantly, like, I would have been much more fine with it, I guess. But now it's a bit sour. But yeah, if you give me with the hugs, like, yeah, absolutely. I don't want to spread hate, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I think spreading hugs is so cute. I love the fact that you're doing this. I think it's spreading positivity in a world where there's a lot of negativity is something actually I totally relate to. In the midst of all of this, to be able to pull a flip starter with Satoshi's Angels, to be able to pull a flip starter for the hackathon, to be able to tell people, hey, let's focus on the code. Hey, let's focus on other things. Like, let's make events. Like, let's see each other. I wonder if things would have been different if we had like a big summit this year that I was supposed to organize with Bitcoin.com actually in the beginning of this year. If we had a second Townsville, where people could have just been hanging out, geeking out together, if that would have made a change.
Oh yeah, the division caused by like the isolation and stuff from this year is another thing that inspired hugs.
And I can't help but think that due to COVID, due to this growing anxiety and frustration, maybe in people's lives, maybe with eeriness of maybe their earnings or their role in this world.
Yeah, the worry about the economy, the world economy right now, for sure has to have had some motivation in wanting to, in the desire to push forward something that would get developers more funding, right?
Yeah. It's a very actually human feeling to want more security. I totally can't. Again, that's something that makes sense in my mind. It's just basically, I wish it had been managed in a better way. Just that's it. I think we're not far from actually, because it's not a it was interesting. It is interesting. And I remember when we were recording that video in Vancouver that we were discussing self-funding mechanisms. I was raving about Decreed and Dash and other blockchains out there that have this. I was like, wow, imagine if we could, like, from a marketing perspective as well, I was like, imagine if we could have funds from the community to do things. That would be a Flipstarter didn't exist at that point. And I wasn't sure exactly how it would be done. And I thought, okay, if you're changing a social contract, like imagine if now, I don't know, if the Catholic Church now told everybody that instead of praying like this, you have to pray like this. It takes a couple of years maybe, to go through those types of changes. I'm not sure everybody's just gonna like be okay by just flipping their hands. And it's a terrible example. I should have thought about this, but like basically just something as simple as like how you're praying or whatever from a religious standpoint, if you apply it to crypto, talking about taking part of the Coinbase reward, attributing it directly to a whitelisted address that is then controlled by a council of people. Like, do you hear yourself that you're not selling this to the right community, basically. It's like, it's not, you have to respect a community or a tribe's values, basically. And then voluntarism and freedom are or at least are like really part of the narrative, I think, in Bitcoin Cash. Censorship resistance, all those things, because of the BTC4, because of blah. Yeah. I don't know. In a different universe, it's done better, and maybe there's no split, and there's a better IFP, and it gets people behind, and it works, and because it's the work of 5 years. and everybody was able to express themselves on the how and the who and the stuff, and it could have been aired properly, and people would have felt listened, and there would have been a real feedback. But, I'll keep dreaming. But I talked about it with Tobias Ruck, and he believes that he can shape ABC in the future to make it different. I was like, well, who maybe,
Mhm.
it seems like the rougher, tougher path to go with. Maybe. I didn't want to be like, so like, oh, well, I did tell him, like, good luck though. That seems really hard. It's going to be really a smaller community. And then if you're there questioning again, they won't like it. I don't think they'll like it. Because the motto right now is, yay, we're doing our own thing, and we're free from people and people disagreeing with us. I think that was a strong feeling for ABC to have finally total control.
Mhm.
And this is just me knowing some people that are anon in the team in ABC. That's a strong motivation for them. They've always wanted more control.
Mhm.
And I think now they have it. I
Mhm.
just wish they hadn't taken the whole community hostage for a while. Because before BCHN, there was a bit of a shock moment. Like, do we have to go with this? Do we have to like organize ourselves to do something that's different? Like, it took a lot, and people are like calling it a rebellion. It's really not. It's like the less glorious rebellion. It's really just a counter movement to stand up for what they believe. So that's really interesting. Yeah, it's not a rebellion. I don't like it's like, but yeah, it was a different group that had to organize themselves to offer an alternative. Definitely.
Tobias Ruck, he was also building the SLP decks, wasn't he?
Was he?
I think so. I think that he was building SLP decks and then halted the project because of a lack of funding. And then when I was writing, writing and making the video about SLPs, I was looking for an SLP exchange, and that's how that came up. But there was one that they were working on. There is another one that's in construction right now, right? It was supposed to launch at the end of last month.
D-Token. D-Token is coming around. They're using general protocols and stuff like that. It's really going to be exciting.
Okay.
I don't want to toot their horn before their own PR comes out, but D-Token.
Right, yeah, they've been really quiet about it.
Yeah. But I remember watching, so I went to the beginning of this year, one of the last Bitcoin Cash meetups I went to was in Zurich, and Semyon, the CEO or founder of D-Token, was there doing a presentation. We were like in a restaurant with like a back alley that was an actual bowling alley. It was so cool. And he did his presentation, like whatever, in front of the bowling place. And that was a really interesting presentation. But at the time, it was about CryptoPhil. And then they rebranded and changed, and now it's D-Token, and it's a decentralized exchange. And yeah, I look forward to that one, actually. But why was I saying this? Yeah, Tobias, I'm not sure about the SLP decks that he was building, but he's the one who came up with the idea. So we have SLP, right? Non-native tokens on BCH, color coins. And he was the one who was saying, we need actual native tokens on BCH. So to be able to have something like DAI, and to have a proper stable coin on BCH. It's really, really interesting things there. So he was the one proposing that code, Mitra. Yeah, and Bcash and other things. I didn't know he was involved with the SLP decks, but he's a brilliant developer. And he's young, and he's very sweet. And he's just, for me this year, he's one of the rare people I was able to talk face-to-face about this and about disagreement basically on all of this. But I respect him as a developer, as a person, all of that. And I truly wish everybody that's in the ABC team like all the best. I just know that I won't be working as much with them. I'll be following them. I'll be seeing from afar. I'll be, but I won't be pushing it. I won't be pushing it as a coin.
That's okay, and that should be okay, and that shouldn't be damaging friendships or working relationships that could happen in the future.
Yeah.
And so that's why I really wanted to talk to you, and I'm really grateful that you took the time out to talk to me.
Happy, Nicole. This was lovely, really. I really, really enjoyed this. And whenever you want to talk about more Loveline, crypto Loveline, I'm here.
Awesome. We'd love to have you back on. All right, so let me know if there's anybody watching this who wants to come on and talk about anything, and it doesn't matter what community you're a part of. I don't care. So, and we don't, I mean, if, I don't know. I'm open to talking about like a whole variety of subjects, even if it's outside of crypto and, and blockchain. If it's something that is important and we want to talk about it, just get in touch. Let me know. Ellie, thanks so much for being here on the very first renewed version of Crypto Loveline. All right, see ya.